Russia is threatening to use tactical nuclear weapons in Syria. Well, that's just part of the default setting of NATO, the United States, and Russia, that if you have a force overwhelmed by a ground force, use tactical nuclear weapons to defeat them. But that's a big deal that Saudi Arabia says they're about to invade with ground troops into Syria. And say what you want, folks. I don't take sides here. I've never been to Russia. I'm not lionizing Vladimir Putin. My issue is Syria has invited Putin in. This is on Russia's doorstep. The West is starting these wars. Look what they've done in Libya. The big news is Russia has reached a deal with the U.S., according to Reuters, to have a Syrian ceasefire on February 27th. We'll see if that holds up. And that's good because the Saudi Arabians have threatened to put tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of ground troops into Syria to battle the Russians there, to prop up their al-Qaeda and ISIS forces. And Russia has threatened to use tactical nuclear weapons after Saudi Arabia last week said we have nukes and we'll use them. So things are escalating in a big, big way.
Now, the Syrian cities of Homs and Damascus have been hit by a wave of suicide bombings. The Islamic State militant group says it carried out the attacks.
Multiple bomb attacks killed at least 100 people in Damascus and Syria's western city of Homs on Sunday. The attacks came on the same day as U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry announced that Washington and Moscow had reached a principal agreement to cease hostilities between the various parties in Syria. He said Presidents Obama and Putin would speak in the coming days to complete the deal. The bloodshed may have rocked the prospects for a ceasefire. The London-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says at least 57 people were killed and 100 others wounded in the twin-car bomb blast that hit Homs. Witnesses say suicide bombers blew themselves up after detonating a car bomb. The death toll is expected to rise since the majority of the casualties are in critical condition.
Iran's military has test-fired 2 ballistic missiles. State television showed video of 2 missiles being launched from northern Iran, which the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, said hit targets 1,400 kilometres away. A brigadier general was quoted as saying the missiles were able to hit Israel from a safe distance. Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Yaalon told media the test showed that Iran's hostility had not changed since implementing a nuclear deal with world powers in January. Washington said it would raise Tuesday's tests at the UN Security Council, but the IRGC said it would not bow to pressure.
Iran test-fired 2 ballistic missiles, sending a disturbing message. The Islamic Republic wrote the phrase, "Israel must be wiped out" on the missiles. It's a show of force from the country as U.S. Vice President Joe Biden visits Israel today. Biden met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who strongly opposes the U.S. nuclear deal with Iran.
Israeli President Reuven Rivlin is in Moscow today to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Rivlin is the first foreign leader to meet with Putin since the Kremlin made the surprising decision to withdraw the majority of its troops from Syria earlier this week. The 2 leaders are expected to mainly discuss the situation in Syria, and Israel wants to understand how Russia envisions Syria's future. The Israeli president says Israel wants to make sure that Iran and Hezbollah do not become stronger in Syria, and he's calling Iranian fundamentalism just as dangerous as the Islamic State.
Israeli President Reuven Rivlin says Israel won't allow Iran and Hezbollah to establish a presence in the Golan Heights. Rivlin's in Moscow this week to meet with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. And he says the presence of enemies along the chaotic Israeli-Syrian border is a red line for the Jewish state. Rivlin also reportedly told Putin that Israel wants United Nations peacekeepers to return to the border, which they largely abandoned when the civil war spiraled out of control. Putin is vowing to continue security coordination with Israel for military activities on the Syrian border, and says Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu will be coming to Russia for talks on regional security and trade.
For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations, and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land.
Trade.
Thus shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. And he shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for gain.
The U.S. State Department Tuesday criticized Israel for appropriating large tracts of land in the West Bank near the Dead Sea and the city of Jericho, as reported by Israeli Army Radio. The State Department said that ongoing expropriations and settlement expansions were fundamentally undermining the prospects for a two-state solution. We strongly oppose any steps that accelerate settlement expansion, which raises serious questions about Israel's long-term intentions, State Department spokesman John Kirby told a news briefing.
Now, the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has called on Israel to halt its latest act of a land grab in the occupied West Bank as Tel Aviv announces the seizure of hundreds of hectares of land. The UN chief added that Tel Aviv's decision is an impediment to the two-state solution. According to Ban Ki-moon, such actions would point toward an increase in settlement activities and show Israelis are trying to tighten their grip on the entire West Bank. Earlier today, the Israeli Army Radio announced that 234 hectares of land near the Dead Sea and the Palestinian city of Jericho would be confiscated.
And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed.
A seizure of land by Israel in the West Bank raises questions about its commitment to a two-state solution to end the conflict with the Palestinians, the European Union said in a statement on Thursday. Echoing remarks this week by Germany, France, and the United States, the EU's Foreign Policy Service issued a statement criticizing Israel for its appropriation of 579 acres, 234 hectares, near Jericho. Israel says it intends to keep large settlement blocks in any future peace agreement with the Palestinians. Palestinians, who seek to establish a state in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, fear settlement expansion will deny them a viable country.
Seizure of 234 hectares of Palestinian land south of the West Bank city of Jericho. Israel claims Palestinians cannot prove their ownership of the land and declared the area as so-called state land. Palestinian officials say this new land grab is the largest since 2014, and they have warned about Israeli dangerous plans to completely take over the fertile Jordan Valley and divide the area within a steady policy to seize land by force.
This land grab is the largest since 2014, when Israel took over 4,000 dunums of land in Bethlehem. This time the Israeli regime has confiscated thousands of dunums adjacent to 1,500 dunums that were grabbed in the same area last January. This area connects Jericho, the Dead Sea and Jerusalem. This is a strategic area for the Israelis.
Into anti-settlement groups, Tel Aviv plans to expand nearby Jewish settlements and carry out tourism and trade projects in the Jordan Valley. PA officials meanwhile say Israel has taken other steps to clear the area of Palestinians for more settlement activity. They say Israel has been helping the settlers build farms around the settlements in the fertile Jordan Valley.
This right-wing extremist Israeli regime wants to strengthen its occupation of the Palestinian territories. It ignores all calls by the international community to stop confiscating Palestinians' lands by force, so as to use them for settlement expansion. Tel Aviv has taken measures to keep Palestinians in cantons in the future.
hear a lot about Hamas activities in Gaza, but the latest threat is from the Palestinian terror group, the Islamic Jihad. The group released a video that shows Islamic Jihad soldiers wearing camo and preparing anti-tank missiles to use against the Israeli army. The video also shows an IDF vehicle moving along the Gaza border and implies that the group is waiting for it with weapons. The end of the clip includes a message written in Arabic and Hebrew, which says to show you the shadow of the horror.
And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up, lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh.